Hello, Will Perry here. How you doing? I hope you are well. Did you make New Year's resolutions? I'm going to have to go quick in this one. And I want to help explain why, what New Year's resolutions have to do with narcissism, low self-esteem, emotional abuse. I want to make the connection for you because you might have set, and you might be on that path of changing a habit, changing a bad habit. I don't want to help you, but I particularly want to help you if you have these things, low self-esteem, if you've been in a toxic relationship, narcissistic abuse, all these key words. You probably know this stuff. So I want to connect the two for you. So why your brain will be saying no when you're saying yes to a better year ahead. Okay, so new me, new year, new me. That's the one. So I'm going to go quick in this. So willpower doesn't do it. Willpower alone can't do this stuff. There's the steps that I want to show you about that you need to go through if you seriously want to change a habit. And that habit could be of low self-esteem. And I want to tell you that. That habit could be of attracting narcissists. And I want to tell you about that. And I will. Just stick with me. Okay, I'll go fast as I can. Okay. So there's willpower. If you willpower alone won't do it, but if you have, if you're an empath, if you have low self-worth, or if you've been in bad relationships, regardless of whether you're in one now, you'll have even less willpower. So that's less likely to work. So you're more likely to fail, and your brain will be working against you. And I want to tell you why your brain is saying to your new habit. Okay, so just to give a bit of context, about 6 years ago, I gave up alcohol. Just before I made that bold decision that I'd always kind of like, oh no, just ignored, completely buried my head in the sand about, I was drinking about half a bottle of wine a night, every night. It wasn't social drinking, it wasn't going out binge drinking, it was just drinking steadily. And I really realised towards the end, it was really uncomfortable to realise that I was, that's meant to be a crutch at the end, how much of a support it was for me emotionally. If I felt stressed, if I felt a bit of a failure, if all these negative feelings, I'd just feel a little bit better after a drink. But of course it goes up and up and up, and every weekend I'd have a little bit more. It'd be like, oh, it's the weekend, isn't it? But I'd just be drinking on my own. It got to such a point I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I went cold turkey and I gave up. I set a date and then just finished all the alcohol in the house and had no more, and that was it. I stuck to it. So you'd think, right, okay, that qualifies me to understand it. But what I understood as I was going through this is the depths of this stuff and how my low self-esteem is working against me. So I really want to set this out for you, regardless of whatever habit you want to change and how you want to improve your life. Okay, these are 5 steps that are really important. I'll tell you about them in a minute, but it really helped me see and really tested my negative beliefs about myself, and it absolutely wasn't willpower that got me through. So the University of Scranton in America did a survey about New Year's resolutions that found out about 40% of Americans make these resolutions, but only 8% are successful. So that's a huge, 92% are failing on average. And it's like, okay, what is it? So it's like done tons of research on this, and there's 5 key steps that are scientifically proven to go through to change a bad habit. But what is a bad habit? That's meant to be a brain. So a bad habit is a behavior that doesn't serve you in the long term, but gives you a short-term hit of something, makes you feel good in the short term, but it's a bad bad behavior, a habit that you repeat again and again and again, even though it doesn't serve you in the long term. And what a habit is, it's hardwired in your brain. So I've previously called them neural highways. They're called neural superhighways, motorways in your brain, and they never go away. We just need to divert the traffic down to a different route. But they absolutely get hardwired in the neural pathways in our head. The electrons go faster, electronic signals go faster through those neural highways, those hardwired habits in our brain, and they never go away. But what we can do is replace them with better habits. But there's 5 steps we need to go through. So step number 1, stress. Managing stress, that's usually a trigger for when, for example, when I would drink, when I would like feel the need, I'd be more conscious of it. It's like, oh, God, what time is it? Can I have a drink? Wrong hand. Can I have a drink? So stress is a huge factor, and that's a massive subject on its own. If you're stressed, you're more likely to succumb to the old habit that never goes away. It's hardwired in your brain. It never goes away. So you need to be able to manage the stress that triggers this mechanism that triggers the bad habit. And that in itself can be a huge amount of work and really difficult to really define, and why are you getting so stressed. And that's what I had to do when I gave up alcohol. I realized why I was getting stressed, and that really opened out for me my low self-worth, low self-belief, and I was feeling like a failure in my business. I was stressed in my relationship. I was, all these stresses, and I was just kind of plugging them and kind of ignoring them. It comes out in you physically, it comes out in you emotionally. So you have to learn to change your stress by changing your state, and that's a massive thing to do, because you have to explore it first. But number one, stress, and it might sound really common sense, and these things are, aren't they? Number two, triggers. So it could be an external trigger. It could be something that happens. It could be people. You get triggered. We're all going to get triggered by people. It's how we react to being triggered by people. So we need to learn to plan for those triggers, because it's going to happen. What triggers me to drink? What was it that was doing that? And what was triggering the stress points? What was triggering this stuff? So I had to go deeper and deeper into this stuff to really explore, oh crap, this is the stuff that I didn't want to see. And it's vulnerable, it's painful, it's difficult. I'd been ignoring it for years and years. So it can be uncomfortable, but having somebody that knows this stuff and can talk you through it, it becomes less painful. So it's how we react to these triggers, not the triggers themselves. Number three, focus. Don't picture an elephant now in your mind. I don't want you to do that. It's that negative embedded command. You can't not do something. So you have to, you can't, if you're trying to not eat an unhealthy food, you can't focus on not eating that, because your brain has to first understand, that thing that you're not focusing on, don't focus on that. So it's focusing it already to picture it. That's literally how our brain works. So not focusing on something works against us. So instead of doing that, instead of not thinking about a pink elephant now on the hill with a feather in its mouth, there we go. Instead of picturing that, focus on the new habit that you want to create, the new activity that's going to create a new habit. That's scientifically proven to work. I do that in my work. It's difficult to train yourself to do that, but it's so important. The fourth one is the reason why. I gave up cigarettes to have a baby, and that made it much easier. It was tough for the first week or so, and apparently I was really grumpy. This is many years ago. My boy is now 20. My God, is he 24 or is he 23? 23. He's 23. It was difficult for the first week, but after that it was all right, because I had a bigger purpose for, my purpose for smoking was probably the stress, very similar to drinking. But the purpose behind the bigger reason was to have a baby. My wife at the time was going through tons of things to make her body more susceptible to having a baby. We had fertility issues at the time. So she was doing everything she could and putting herself and her body through tons. And it's like the least I could do was to give up smoking, So the reason was a no-brainer for me. It was a really important reason. And I haven't smoked since, and it's been a lovely thing. Now, the thing more recently, I say 6 years ago, that's quite recent, it went really deep, deeper than I'd ever thought. And it went down to my core negative beliefs about myself. And that's, like I said, where I became scared and vulnerable about it, because I was admitting the stuff about myself that I hadn't admitted for a long time. So there I could access lots of benefits, lots of reasons why we're doing this. And the reasons have to be bigger than the reason you reach for the drink or reach for the cigarette or whatever the habit is that you want to change. The reason for doing this, for changing your habit, has to be bigger. That makes sense, does it not? Now, willpower does exist, but if you have low self-esteem, I've got a small bucket here, consider it like a bucket. It's going to run out. if you use from the bucket, take from the bucket, it's gonna run out eventually. If you have low self-esteem, I've put it there, like your bucket's even smaller, so your willpower will run out sooner than somebody with healthy self-esteem. That's why people often go through these yo-yo diets. Their willpower runs out really quickly, and guess what? The old habit, the neural superhighway, the motorway in the brain, the hardwired neural pathways, they just go back into default mode. So you go back into the old habit really easily, and it's a really difficult thing to overcome. And these 5 steps are key to it. So you need to make it easier for yourself, not using or just leaning on your willpower, because it runs out really quickly. Absolutely, you need willpower, but you need to have all the other systems in place as well, so you can use your willpower wisely. Gosh, that was difficult to say. So, in conclusion, I'm going to go now. Just the last bits. Again, that's meant to be a brain. It does look a bit odd now. So changing your habits for anybody normal is really difficult. You're dealing with hardwired belief systems in your brain, hardwired neural pathways, and you can measure this stuff. You can see this stuff live. It's amazing what science can do in the last 10 years. So it's hardwired, you can see this stuff, and it doesn't go away. We just want to get so that we don't use that hardwired system, we replace it with another hardwired system, but we have to create that and create that habit by doing activities and lining all this stuff up and making it work for us. And only 8% do it. But if you use the systems intentionally and you know what you're dealing with, then you can be one of the 8%. So it's hardwired, it's difficult. You've got stress, you've got triggers, you've got limited willpower, but you do have willpower. So combine all that stuff, you can overcome it. But it is difficult. Absolutely, it is difficult. Some people just go for the habits. They think, just changing the habits. But if you have low self-esteem, it's like you've got something underneath the habits that are creating the habits. Changing the habits and tackling them won't work if you have low self-worth, low self-esteem, which in itself is a complex system of processes, triggers, and mechanisms within your brain that are all hardwired. And then on top of that, you've got habits that you want to change. If you just try and attack the habits, it won't work, because you've got the deep mechanisms of your low self-worth that in of themselves are complex systems of processes, triggers, and mechanisms hardwired in your brain. That's what you need to change. And this is really big stuff, really, really big stuff. I had no idea how deep this went until I went on that journey and became alcohol free. Ran really deep within me, and it was like, holy crap, I can see it now. I've been through that journey. And that's what addiction is, isn't it? Repeated behavior that doesn't help you in the long term, but gives you makes you feel good about yourself in the short term. That's repeated over time. So that's what addiction is, repeated behavior. And you can take control, but you have to align all these things up. Now, you can get a personal, if you want to get fit, you can get a personal training coach. If you want to tackle a different behavior that isn't so good in addiction, you can get a coach, you can do hypnosis. But, and it's a big but, is it not? If you have this low self-worth, low self-esteem, if you struggle with self-belief, then you've got this deeper complex system of processes, triggers, and mechanisms that are already working against you. That's what's giving you the low self-worth. So if you're trying to do a habit, but you've got this stuff going on, it will fail. It will not work, because you need to go deeper. You need to work deeper. You need to work on the low self-worth. Does that make sense? You need to work on this complex system of processes, triggers, and mechanisms, and get those, understand those, and battle those, create new ones for yourself. Because if you're trying to create good habits on top of these complex systems of processes, triggers, and mechanisms that are negative and working against you, it's not going to work. Does that make sense? So you need to work on these things first if you identify that you have these going on, and I can help both in terms of identifying it and helping you overcome that. If you're in a relationship that's toxic, narcissistic relationship, I've got a 90-day coaching program that will help you exit that relationship. Or if it's about overcoming narcissistic abuse, if you've attracted narcissists in the past, I can help. There's a self-esteem link here. I'll put it in the description. free. I don't get any details of it. It's completely confidential. I don't take any email or anything like that. Self-esteem test. Discover if this is you. If you have low self-esteem. If you score 18 or more, you don't need this. This isn't for you. You don't need me. If you score between 15 and 18, then you probably just need a little bit of a tweak to really align and be able to take control for yourself. So you're kind of on the borderline. If you've got 15 or less, then this is absolutely for you, and you'll be struggling with these issues. Step one is from that to take the 12 Days to Decide program, £47. Again, link in the description. It's a 12-day short focus program. You get guaranteed, I guarantee that. So if you go to the end and it doesn't give you what you want, then I'll give you your money back. I have no qualms about doing that. It's a nice way to work, especially if you don't know me. So you get one-to-one time with me included in that. It's about giving you clarity about what the real problem is, rather than the bad habit. It's like, no, the stuff underneath, the complex system of processes, mechanisms, and triggers that are working against you. So that's quite fast. I hope that made sense to you. If you've got any questions about that, do ask. But this time of year, no wonder so many fail, because so many people have this issue, but they just do not realize. Okay, many thanks for your time. Speak to you soon. I hope you're well. All right, bye-bye.